Hello? Hello? Who's that? Whoa! Water!
What's up? What's up? Thanks for joining us tonight for the Tuesday night edition of Ghost Chat Radio. This is the Paranormal Diva, Jodi Smith, your host, and your other host, the Paranormal Rebel, Jason Stanton, will be joining us shortly. And we've got a terrific guest for you tonight, Mr. Thomas Fusco. He is an author, and he wrote a terrific, really fascinating book called Behind the Cosmic Veil, a new vision of reality merging science, the spiritual, and the supernatural. So I can't wait to get into that. How you doing tonight, Thomas?
Oh, great, Jodi. Excuse me. Just clearing my throat. Thanks for having me on the show.
Well, thank you for joining us. We've been really excited to hear all about your experiences, you know, to be a little bit more scientific, a little something different than what we did last night. So the way that we normally like to start out the show is by covering a couple of weird, true stories that Jason and I have gathered from around the web. So I'm going to read a couple of stories, and then you and I can talk about it. And I want to let everybody know that we have a new thing that we're doing tonight, and it's called Dumbass Trivia. So what's going to happen is at some point I'm going to throw out a couple of special key either code words or secrets about someone, and we'll just see how well you guys are paying attention, because Jason has a couple of really nice Ghost Chat Radio coffee mugs to give out. So if you can call in with the right answer and you're the first one to do it, you will win. So those are the rules. So the first thing I want to mention tonight is, that we had a loss here in the paranormal world, and I'm sure so many of you knew him or were very familiar with his work, but Frank Sumption has passed away, and of course he was the creator of the Ghost Box, also known as the Frank's Box, of course. So I'm just going to briefly touch on a little article that I have about Frank, and it's a large, it's a huge loss to the community. I'm sorry to hear that he passed away. He really wasn't even that old, so it was kind of a surprise. But the device was developed by Sumption, the Frank's Box, back in 2002, and it utilized the concept of electric voice phenomena, EVP, to speak to spirits. And the method with the Frank's Box was that the background noise is recorded by a microphone and then analyzed in the belief that voices can be heard in the static. Now, he was a very eccentric EVP enthusiast, and he claimed at the time that even the design for this device, when he created it, had actually been received from the spirit world, via a transmission to him. And, the article says that Frank never really put his devices up for general sale, but instead created only a very limited run of about 180 units in his lifetime, and he distributed them to a select people, a few people who he felt should have one. And I happen to know, I would have loved to be one of those recipients, but I did not know Frank. But I do know a couple of of people who Chip Coffey, for one, who was personally given a box made by Frank. And I do know that he did sell a few of the boxes over the years, but, to people that he knew, to people that he knew and trusted. So, despite the highly controversial nature of his invention, and some people think a lack of evidence to actually suggest that it had ever been able to communicate actually with the dead, the Frank's box really did influence the field of EVP, I think, like nothing before. It sort of ushered in a new era of paranormal investigation. And, from there, like I have a Shack Hack, which is sort of a cheap modified version of a Radio Shack radio, for those of you that don't know. And it works. It picks things up. It takes a little practice. You have to sort of get the hang of it. But there's a lot of other spirit boxes that have now been developed, and even now there's new ones being developed all the time to help us really learn as much as we can about EVP. So did you know Frank at all, Thomas?
No, not at all. And
no. Okay.
I might just to let your audience know so that there's no confusion. I myself am not a paranormal investigator.
Okay.
What I am is a scientific theorist, and that I have taken the body of paranormal phenomena as a very important collection of evidence to tell us much more about how the universe actually works. So when it comes to the paranormal investigators and investigating as such, I may not be as well versed as someone who's very active in that end of the field.
Right. Well, no, and that's okay, because we, here on Ghost Chat, we really like to cover all different sorts of supernatural and paranormal topics, and we love anything involving science. I mean, we just cover all kinds of things, super casual here. So, no, that's great, and we really like to mix it up. So that's terrific.
Jodi, I wanted to ask you, though, what did Frank die from?
What? Oh,
what did
he know?
What did he pass away from?
I don't know for sure. It didn't say in the article, and I know that his family has been chatting on Facebook. So I'm not sure if it was, it's a surprise to me. And a lot of people seemed very surprised. They were like, I just talked to Frank. Literally, people had talked to him that day or the day before. He was actively, in social media and, close with a lot of people in the paranormal who regularly converse with him. So I think it was rather sudden. I think he may have had a heart attack. But I can't confirm that for sure. It's not in a particular article that I pulled out. And even the article that I had posted, a different one on Facebook, it didn't really say what happened with him. Just, I see his funeral arrangements and things are posted on there for people that would like to go. I think he lives out. I think he did live out in Colorado with his family, I think.
Well, there you go. The reason why I was asking is, and I'm sure we'll get into it later in the show, is some of the kind of exciting and interesting and at times a little bit disturbing physical evidence that has been collected recently. And, it has something to do with health issues.
Interesting.
And so hopefully we'll be able to get into that a little bit later in the show, but I don't really want to talk about it now because I'd be putting the cart before the horse for the audience. I don't really want to do that.
I'd love to talk about it. All right, well, let's go on. We're going to talk about a couple of other weird news stories that I have for you, and this one is actually from the Inquisitor.com, and it says, and I, just so you know, I'm a fan of Ouija boards. I've always liked them since I was a child and have always worked with them. So I actually own a few of them. But I've never been possessed by one. And this article says 3 people ended up being rushed to a hospital after being allegedly possessed during a Ouija session. So weird, right? Alexandra Huerta, her brother Sergio, and their cousin Fernando Cuevas have been playing around with a Ouija board in the Mexican village of San Juan Tenko, when all three of them started to weirdly just exhibit strange behavior. And, within minutes of beginning the session, Alejandra was said to have fallen into a deep trance-like state before growing maniacally like a dog and just thrashing around uncontrollably. Then the people that were with her, Sergio and Fernando, soon began to experience strange symptoms of their own, including vivid hallucinations, blindness, deafness. I mean, a local Catholic priest was actually called in to perform an exorcism. Now, and this kind of gets me. He allegedly refused to help them because none of them were regular churchgoers. I mean, can you imagine? Now, I'd like to know what kind of hallucinogenic drugs they were taking before they broke out the Ouija board, some kind of party was happening, I think. But
one thing's for sure, but they weren't putting any money in the right basket, right?
Apparently not. And you know what? I'm Catholic. I was raised Catholic. So that kind of blows my mind because, even the paranormal investigations groups, we all, well, some of them don't, but they should. We all do it for free. We're all here to help people. So for a Catholic priest to come in to perform an exorcism and he goes there and then refuses to do it because they weren't regular churchgoers or parishioners, that just fucking blows my mind, So paramedics did attend the scene, and the ones who went there, they found themselves having to forcibly restrain Alejandra for her own safety before taking all three of them to the hospital, and they treated them with a combination of painkillers and anti-stress medication. Well, that probably gave them some more hallucinations. Who knows? But, right? Imagine. Can you imagine? Yeah, let's just give them some more drugs. But they said it seemed to be effective at treating the symptoms that they were exhibiting. And, the medical rescue of these three young people was very complicated, said a public safety director, Vicar Deniza, and it appeared as if they were in a trance-like state, apparently after playing with the Ouija board. And they spoke of feeling numbness in their limbs, experiencing double vision, blindness, deafness, hallucinations, muscle spasms, difficulty swallowing. I mean, that's crazy. I mean, and again, I have a lot of experience with this, and I've never, ever seen anything like that. And honestly, any of my friends who are also intuitives or psychics who are comfortable with witch boards or Ouija boards, I don't know anybody who has had this type of an experience. So it's crazy. Have you ever heard anything like that?
Well, personally, no, although you hear anecdotally about certain reports. I know that one lady who is very well known in this field, Rosemary Ellen Guiley, wrote a book. I think she published it last year called Ouija Board Fiascos. Okay. Where she talks about, she talks about these kinds of, boards gone wild, and it can be, I myself personally don't think that it's a good thing to play with for most people. Because you are dealing with certain things that you're not aware of, that you're not familiar with,
No, you're absolutely right, Thomas. And play being the operative word there, nobody should play with it. If you don't know what you're doing and you're not experienced, it's not something to play with. It's definitely not a game, for sure. So I'll have to check that book out. You're going to have to email me that information, and I will post it on the Ghost Chat Radio fan page for anyone who might be interested in looking at that book. And I mean, I've had a lot of experiences with, I'm a natural psychic. I'm a fourth generation psychic in my family since I was a little child, and I have had a lot of experiences, but where the planchette can be moving very quickly on the board. Definitely, I've had a lot of spirit communication, and but never where I felt like I was possessed, or where anyone else who was with me at that time felt possessed. I could understand a little bit of a trance-like state maybe, but this is crazy. So that'll be interesting to read her book for sure. I mean, and this is new. This is a new article, so interesting.
Yeah, I don't have any more information on the book itself other than its name. It's Ouija Board Fiascos.
Okay.
And when I first heard about it, I said, all right, Rosemary, that sounds like a home run, that one.
Yeah.
But as far as the other aspect of the story, another aspect of the story, there is a very strong prejudice in the Christian community.
I know.
Against these kinds of things. And in my book, Behind the Cosmic Veil, I actually devote a little bit of space talking about that. And actually, there's a chapter that's called The Paranormal Bible.
Okay.
And I kind of explain why most of this prejudice is unwarranted and, what the real spiritual focuses should be. That's something that is not uncommon.
Yeah. And let's face it, back in the day, in the Dark Ages, people did regularly consult with these types of things, table boards or witch boards, and they've evolved and changed a little over the years, and the ritual of it has changed a little over the years as well. But, anytime you're trying to do spirit communication, you've got to protect yourself, of course. And I just don't think it should be a religious thing, and it's completely against the religion that I was raised in, absolutely. But, so is
naughty
consulting.
Girl, you. You naughty girl.
Well, I am a naughty girl. Everyone knows that for sure. We all know that. Everybody listening knows. But, we just had a recent guest on, too. I don't know if you're familiar with Karen Dahlman, and she just wrote a terrific new book about, 20 years or so of her personal experience with boards, and she loves, her love affair with boards, definitely. And that is we had a fascinating interview with her as well. But, when Jason and I were discussing it recently and also discussing it with Karen and a couple of other guests, really the way to look at it, I think, is it's just a tool. I mean, what is so different about, you're trying to do spirit communication with your K2 meter? I have a K2, I have a Mel meter, or people that are putting down a flashlight and saying, I want you to turn it off, or, flash yes for once, or, don't turn it on if it's no. These are all just conduits for trying to gain spirit communication. And really, it's just a board. It doesn't have any power until you give it power through using it with your own personal energy,
Hey, I understand what you're saying. I think for me, and I speak on a professional level.
Yeah,
because,
sure.
there's certain professional positions that I take that I have to take from a professional point of view. And then there's certain personal opinions that I have. But I like to speak from the professional point of view in these areas. And what I say is that, what we need to do, or at least what I'm involved in doing, is understanding the phenomenon to try to understand what's actually going on, particularly from a physical standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
And through that, understand better, essentially, how the universe is assembled, how it's put together. If we have a valid observation and current scientific models of the way the universe is put together
mm-hmm.
do not encompass these observations or have no place for these observations in their system, then that system is somehow incomplete or flawed. And so that's my pursuit as I mentioned earlier, I consider this whole realm of paranormal and supernatural an essential body of evidence and observations and data that must tell us something about the nature of reality.
Oh, I agree. Absolutely.
So that's where my focus is on it.
I can't wait to read your book now.
Well, that's great. That was pretty straightforward, wasn't it?
And absolutely. And no, I love science. I'm not a scientist, but I'm definitely a science freak for sure. So, if it's anything over my head, I'll definitely have questions for you. But all right, we've got another story, and this is just basic. Dr. Rupert Sheldrake conducted a study to see if we can really tell who is calling on the phone before picking up, And this is in the Epoch Times. And, if you've ever received a phone call out of the blue that you weren't expecting, but somehow you found that you knew who was on the other end before you even picked up the phone, then you weren't alone. The phenomenon of telephone telepathy is definitely not a new one. And, I've experienced this so many times. But I swear the ring sometimes sounds different when it's my daughter calling. I am not kidding. I always know when it's her. Of course, she always needs something, so it always feels urgent. But in a recent experiment, Dr. Rupert Sheldrake tested this concept. He had a group of volunteers, and he asked them to answer a telephone call after writing down in advance who they believed was on the other end out of a possible selection of 4 options. Now, and most of us don't have 4 options. It could be anyone. But the results seem to show a higher than expected tendency for the volunteers to correctly guess who's phoning. The average scores were very significantly above the 25% hit rate, which was expected by chance. So they scored definitely higher. And in his research, which was published in the Institute of Noetic Science earlier this year, Sheldrake claims that several other studies, including those conducted at the University of Amsterdam in Holland and the University of Freiburg in Germany, have also shown very similar results. The phenomena was actually found to be even more prominent when the person phoning shared a strong emotional bond with the recipient, just like I was saying with my daughter. So is there really some form of telepathy going on here, or are these results simply the result of random chance? The only way to resolve these questions is by means of continued experimental tests that can be evaluated statistically, said Sheldrake. But these tests gave positive, statistically significant results. So it's kind of fascinating, really, What do you think, Thomas?
Well, I have a lot of respect for Dr. Rupert Sheldrake.
Oh, you know him. Oh, good. Okay.
Well, I know of him, and
yeah,
I'm familiar with his work, yes.
Okay,
and,
great.
Oh, excuse me.
I tried to get you a little science.
There you go. I mean, as we were talking earlier about Ms. Guiley's book, I would also recommend for anyone who is interested in some of the fallacies and some of the weaknesses of the establishment of mainstream science should pick up a copy of Sheldrake's latest book, Science Set Free.
Science Set Free. Okay.
Yeah, it's got a different title in Europe. I forget that, but the publishers decided to give it that particular title for the United States.
Okay.
What we're looking at here is something that is statistically significant. And assuming Dr. Sheldrake, of course, being thoroughly familiar with the scientific method, has conducted the experiment with the proper types of controls, then this is scientifically significant. The next step, as he says, and this is fundamental to the Baconian, or what we call today the scientific method, that was invented by Sir Francis Bacon way back when, is that repeatability, replication is one of the hallmarks of science. In other words, we need other teams to actually set up the same kinds of experiments under very similar, if not ideal, conditions, and to replicate those results. And so that's what Dr. Sheldrake is doing. And it is the greatest of challenges when you're dealing with alternative theories and alternative ideas to get mainstream scientists or physicists to adopt these things and replicate them.